I turned around slowly, my hands still gripping the paper cup of coffee that had gone cold. The community center buzzed with the usual Thursday afternoon crowd, seniors playing cards, a yoga class wrapping up in the corner. But Patricia Chen, the manager from TD Bank on Bloor Street, stood there with an expression I'd seen before on clients' faces when the markets crashed in 2008. "David, we need to talk privately," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's urgent." I followed her to one of the small meeting rooms they kept for book clubs and board games. She closed the door, and that's when she said it. "Your name is being used to scam seniors. The Financial Consumer Agency contacted us this morning." I froze. My coffee cup nearly slipped from my hand. "I'm sorry, what?" Patricia pulled out her phone, scrolling quickly. 3 elderly clients filed complaints this week about investment seminars using your name and credentials. Morrison Financial Advisory. They said you personally recommended a cryptocurrency fund. David, you've been retired for 4 years. The words hung in the air like smoke. I couldn't quite breathe through. Morrison Financial Advisory. I'd closed that practice when my wife Elizabeth died, couldn't bear going into the office without her running the administrative side. We'd built that business together over 32 years. "That's impossible," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, something cold settled in my chest. I haven't used those credentials since 2020. The business license expired. "Someone renewed it," Patricia said. 6 months ago. And they've been hosting exclusive retirement planning seminars across the GTA. High-pressure sales tactics for something called the Northern Star Crypto Fund. Minimum investment, $50,000. 50,000. I thought of my own clients, the teachers and nurses and small business owners I'd helped build their retirement savings. The trust it had taken decades to earn. Who would do this? But even as I asked, my mind was already racing through possibilities, each one more uncomfortable than the last. Patricia hesitated. The business renewal application lists 2 principles, your name and. She turned her phone toward me. Christina Morrison, my daughter-in-law. I stared at the screen. There was Christina's signature, right next to where someone had forged mine. The application was dated March 15th. 6 months ago, right around when she'd suggested I move in with her and my son James. "For your own good, Dad," James had said. "The house is too big for you alone. We worry about you." I'd resisted at first. I liked my independence, my routines, my Sunday mornings reading the Globe and Mail and the breakfast nook Elizabeth had designed. But they'd been persistent, Christina especially. "We have that guest suite on the main floor," she'd said. "Your own entrance, your own space. And James works from home now, so someone's always around if you need anything." If you need anything. The phrase had stung, implying I was becoming one of those elderly people who needed looking after. But I'd given in eventually, telling myself it was temporary, just until I figured out my next chapter. "I need copies of everything," I told Patricia. "The complaints, the applications, all of it." She nodded. "I brought printouts." "David, there's something else. The seminars are scheduled weeks in advance, well organized. Professional marketing materials with your photo, your credentials, testimonials from satisfied clients. This isn't amateur hour." My photo. I thought about the family photos that lined the walls of James and Christina's house. My old business cards in a box Christina had offered to organize for me. The laptop I rarely used anymore that sat in my suite. "How much have they taken?" I asked. "The 3 complaints we know about? 140,000 combined. But David, if they've been doing this for 6 months," she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. I left the community center in a daze, Patricia's folder burning in my hands like evidence of my own stupidity. How had I not known? But then, how would I have known? Christina handled the mail now, said it was easier since everything came to one address. She'd offered to manage my banking too, take that stress off your plate, but I'd declined. Thank God I'd declined. The house was quiet when I let myself in through the side entrance to my suite. James would be in his home office, Christina probably at her spin class or meeting friends for lunch. I had time to think. I sat at my small desk and opened Patricia's folder. The first complaint was from a woman named Dorothy Henderson, 73, from Mississauga. She'd attended a seminar at a Holiday Inn conference room in April. The description of David Morrison matched me. Late 60s, tall, gray hair, distinguished looking, professional and knowledgeable about financial markets, she'd written. He seemed to really understand the concerns of retirees. But I'd been in Muskoka that week, at the cabin James and Christina had insisted I take a break at. You need to relax, Dad. Get away from the city. I'd gone because they'd seemed so concerned about me, about my mental health after Elizabeth. The second complaint was from Arthur Chen, 71, North York. His seminar had been in May. I checked my calendar. That was the week of the family emergency that had Christina in tears, needing James to drive her to Kingston to see her supposedly ill mother. I'd stayed home to watch their dog. A pattern was forming, and I didn't like where it pointed. The third complaint was the most damaging. Margaret Wu, 68, Scarborough. She'd not only attended the seminar but had met David Morrison for a private consultation afterward. She'd invested $75,000, her entire retirement savings from 30 years as a dental hygienist. The consultation had been at a coffee shop in Scarborough Town Center. She'd even taken a photo, blurry but clear enough. The man in the photo wasn't me. He was tall, gray-haired, late 60s, wearing glasses I'd never owned and a suit I'd never bought. Professional-looking, distinguished. Generic enough to match a description, but specific enough to be convincing. An actor. They'd hired an actor to play me. I heard the front door open. Christina's voice, bright and cheerful. "I'm home. James, honey, did you remember to pick up that prescription for your dad?" My prescription. For blood pressure medication I'd been taking for years. Except lately, Christina had been the one picking it up, managing my medications, organizing my pill case. "It's easier," she'd said. "I'm at the pharmacy anyway." How many times had I felt unusually foggy lately? Attributed it to age. How many times had Christina suggested I'd forgotten conversations we'd had, appointments I'd missed, calls I'd supposedly made? "You're just getting older, Dad," James had said gently when I'd questioned myself. "It happens to everyone." But I wasn't everyone. I was a man who'd spent 4 decades managing complex financial portfolios, remembering hundreds of clients' details, tracking market trends across time zones. My mind was sharp. It had always been sharp, unless someone wanted me to doubt that. I heard footsteps approaching my suite. A knock on the door, soft and solicitous. "David, are you in there?" Christina's voice. "I brought you some tea. That herbal blend you like." The herbal blend she'd introduced me to 3 months ago, that I'd never particularly enjoyed but drank to be polite. "Just a minute," I called out, shoving the folder into my desk drawer. When I opened the door, Christina stood there with a tray, her smile warm and concerned. "You look tired," she said, setting the tray on my coffee table. "Did you enjoy the community center?" "It was fine," I said carefully. "Ran into some old acquaintances." "That's wonderful," she said. "You know, I was thinking we should probably update your contact information with the center. I noticed some of your old business contacts have been trying to reach you, and I wouldn't want you to feel obligated to deal with work matters. You're retired. You should be relaxing. Work contacts trying to reach me. How convenient." "What contacts?" I asked. She waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, just some calls to the house line. I handled them. Told them you were enjoying retirement and weren't available for consultations. You don't mind, do you?" I minded very much, but I just smiled. "No, of course not. Thank you for looking out for me." After she left, I poured the tea down the bathroom sink and sat down to think. I needed proof. Real proof, not just suspicions. And I needed to understand the full scope of what they were doing. I waited until James and Christina went out for dinner, claiming a date night they'd been planning. "We'll bring you back something," Christina had said. "You just rest." The moment their car pulled away, I went to work. James's home office was on the 2nd floor, a converted bedroom with a lock I'd taught him to pick when he was 12 and had locked himself out. Some skills you don't forget. His computer was password protected, but I knew James. His password was always some variation of important dates. I tried Elizabeth's birthday, our anniversary, his own birthday. On the 4th try, I got it. Christina J. 2018, the year they'd married. His email was a goldmine. A separate account I'd never known about, northernstarfinancial@gmail.com, Hundreds of emails, seminar registrations, follow-up consultations, payment confirmations through untraceable cryptocurrency wallets. I scrolled back through the months, my horror growing with each message. This wasn't just a few scams. This was systematic, organized, professional. Christina had been planning this for over a year, since before she'd suggested I move in. An email from March caught my eye. From Christina to someone named Marcus Vale. Subject line, "The Morrison Problem." "He's sharper than we thought," Christina had written, asking too many questions about the business renewal. "We need to accelerate the memory concerns. I've been doubling the sedative in his evening tea, but he's starting to refuse it. Maybe we need to push the dementia angle harder, get him officially diagnosed. Once he's declared incompetent, we have full control of his accounts and his credentials indefinitely." My hands shook as I read. The tea, the herbal blend that made me foggy and confused. And the implication was clear. They wanted to have me declared mentally incompetent so they could take control of my assets, my reputation, everything Elizabeth and I had built. I kept reading. There were emails about the actor they'd hired, a man named Derek Sullivan who'd done corporate training videos and had the right look. Emails about the marketing firm handling the seminar materials. Emails about lawyers they'd consulted on elder guardianship laws. And then I found the accounting spreadsheet. Christina had been meticulous. 27 seminars over 6 months. 163 attendees. 42 actual investments. Total take, $2.3 million. $2.3 million stolen from retirees using my name, my reputation, my life's work. I photographed everything with my phone, page after page, backing it up to a cloud account Christina didn't know about. Then I checked James's browser history. He'd been researching power of attorney forms, guardianship proceedings, private care facilities. They weren't just planning to scam strangers. They were planning to lock me away. I heard a car in the driveway. They were back early. I closed everything quickly, locked the office door behind me, and made it back to my suite just as the front door opened. "Dad?" James called. "We brought you butter chicken from that place you like." I opened my door, making sure to look relaxed. "You didn't have to do that." Christina appeared behind James, her eyes scanning my face. Could she tell? Did she suspect I knew? "You look better," she said. "More alert. Did you nap?" "A bit," I lied. "Feeling quite sharp, actually." Something flickered across her face. "Concern? Calculation?" "Well, don't overdo it," she said. "You know what the doctor said about managing your stress levels." "What doctor?" I hadn't seen a doctor in months, but I nodded and took the takeout container and returned to my suite, my mind already working through the next steps. I couldn't go to the police yet. I needed more. I needed to understand who else was involved, how deep this went. And I needed to protect the victims, the people who'd trusted David Morrison with their life savings. Over the next week, I played the part they expected. Confused sometimes, forgetful. I drank the tea Christina brought, but poured it out later. I let them think their plan was working. Meanwhile, I was building my case. I contacted Patricia Chen again, asked her to pull records of every complaint filed about Morrison Financial Advisory. There were more than 3. There were 17. The Financial Consumer Agency had been investigating for 2 months. I reached out to former colleagues from my decades in financial advising. People I trusted. People who remembered Elizabeth and knew me well enough to believe me. Together, we started tracing the money trail. The Northern Star Crypto Fund didn't exist, of course. The investments went into a series of shell companies, then cryptocurrency exchanges, then disappeared into offshore accounts. But cryptocurrency, for all its anonymity, leaves traces if you know where to look, and I'd spent 40 years following money trails. Christina had been clever, but she'd made mistakes. She'd used her real name on rental agreements for the seminar venues. She'd paid the actor Derek Sullivan through Interact transfers from an account tied to her social insurance number. She'd gotten sloppy because she'd assumed I was too old, too grief-stricken, too medicated to notice. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dorothy Henderson, the first complainant, called me. Patricia had given her my real number, and Dorothy had questions. "Mr. Morrison," she said, her voice shaky but determined, "I know that man at the seminar wasn't you. I saw your photo in the Financial Post from 2018 at that charity gala. The man I met didn't have the same eyes. We talked for an hour. Dorothy had been a school principal for 30 years. She knew people, knew when something was off. She'd started her own investigation after filing the complaint, reached out to other attendees. We formed a group, she told me, 12 of us. We're comparing notes, gathering evidence. And Mr. Morrison, we want to help you catch them. That's when I knew we had a chance. The next seminar was scheduled for late September at a conference room in a Marriott near Pearson Airport. Marcus Vail, Christina's partner I'd learned about from the emails, had booked it under a numbered company. They were getting bolder, moving to bigger venues, targeting wealthier retirees. Dorothy and her group registered for the seminar. So did 3 undercover investigators from the RCMP's Financial Crimes Unit, contacts I'd cultivated through Patricia's connections at the bank. And so did I. I disguised myself, not much, just enough. Different glasses, a subtle change to my usual style. I wanted to see Derek Sullivan in action, wanted to see him wearing my reputation like a costume. The seminar was professional, I had to admit. Slick presentation, testimonials from satisfied clients played on a screen, charts showing impossible returns. Derek worked the room like a seasoned pro, and I understood why people believed him. He'd studied me, copied my mannerisms, my speech patterns. He was good, but he wasn't me. When he opened the floor for questions, Dorothy stood up. "Mr. Morrison," she said clearly, "could you tell us about your wife, Elizabeth, and how she influenced your investment philosophy?" Derek hesitated just for a second. "My late wife was a remarkable woman," he said smoothly. "She taught me the importance of careful planning and conservative strategies. Elizabeth hadn't been conservative. She'd been adventurous, pushed me to take calculated risks, believed in emerging markets when everyone else was skeptical. Anyone who'd known us would have known that." Dorothy sat down with a slight nod in my direction. The trap was set. After the seminar, Derek offered private consultations. I signed up as Robert Chen, Dorothy's invented cousin from Markham. When I sat across from him in the hotel's coffee shop, he didn't recognize me behind my different glasses and more casual attire. "Robert," he said, shaking my hand with practiced warmth. "It's a pleasure. Dorothy speaks highly of you." I recorded everything on my phone, tucked in my jacket pocket. Every lie, every false promise, every manipulation tactic, designed to pressure a senior citizen into making a catastrophic financial decision. When he asked me to sign preliminary investment documents, I pulled out my wallet. But instead of identification, I laid down a business card. My old business card. David Morrison, CFP, Morrison Financial Advisory. Derek's face went white. He looked from the card to me, recognition finally dawning. "You might not recognize me without my usual glasses," I said calmly, "but I think we both know who I am." He stood abruptly, knocking over his coffee. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sit down, Mr. Sullivan," I said. "Or should I call you Derek? The RCMP is very interested in meeting you. They're right outside, actually, waiting for my signal." Saturday. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to tell the officers everything. Who hired you, how long you've been doing this, where the money went. And, in exchange, the Crown might consider your cooperation when determining your sentence." "Christina promised this was legal," he said, his voice breaking. "She said you'd agreed to license your name for marketing, that this was all legitimate." "Did she now?" I said. "And you didn't think to verify that with me directly? Or wonder why a retired financial advisor would suddenly be running high-pressure crypto scams?" He had no answer to that. The arrests happened quickly after that. Derek Sullivan cooperated fully, gave detailed testimony. Marcus Vail, Christina's business partner, was arrested at his condo in Liberty Village. The RCMP seized computers, documents, bank records. Christina and James were arrested at the house, mid-morning on a Tuesday. I wasn't there. I couldn't watch my son led away in handcuffs, couldn't face the reality of what he'd known, what he'd allowed to happen. Because the emails made it clear, James had known, not everything maybe, but enough. He'd known Christina was using my name. He'd known about the seminars. He'd helped with the plan to have me declared incompetent. He'd chosen her over me, chosen money over his father. That betrayal cut deeper than anything Christina had done. The investigation uncovered $2.8 million in total fraud, more than my initial estimate. 37 victims. 37 retirees who'd trusted my name, my reputation, the career Elizabeth and I had built together. The money was recoverable, most of it frozen in accounts the RCMP traced. The victims would get restitution. But the damage to my name, to the Morrison Financial Advisory brand, that would take longer to repair. The trial was swift. Derek Sullivan's cooperation, combined with the mountain of evidence we'd gathered, left little room for defense. Christina was sentenced to 8 years for fraud, identity theft, and elder abuse. Marcus Vale got 6 years. Derek Sullivan, in exchange for his testimony, got 3 years in probation. And James, my son, my only child, he was sentenced to 4 years, eligible for parole in 18 months. The judge was harsh, but acknowledged that he'd been manipulated by Christina, that his role had been more passive than active. But passive complicity was still complicity. I sat in the courtroom when the sentence was read and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just emptiness where my family used to be. Afterward, Dorothy Henderson found me in the courthouse hallway. She was there with 8 others from the victims group, all present to see justice served. "Mr. Morrison," she said, taking my hand, "what you did, exposing them, helping us get our money back, that took courage." "I should have caught on sooner," I said. "I should have protected you all." "You couldn't have known," she said firmly. "They were professionals. But you fought back when you did know, and that matters. That's who you really are." The Globe and Mail ran the story. Financial advisor exposes daughter-in-law's fraud scheme. CBC interviewed me. The response was overwhelming. Former clients reaching out, colleagues offering support, strangers thanking me for standing up for elderly victims. But none of it brought Elizabeth back. None of it gave me back my son. I moved out of James and Christina's house that same week the arrests happened. Found a condo in the annex, close to the university and the kinds of coffee shops and bookstores Elizabeth had loved. I'm rebuilding my life at 68. Starting over in ways I never imagined I'd have to. Dorothy and her victims group, we meet monthly now. We've started a foundation, warning other seniors about financial fraud, teaching them the red flags, the manipulation tactics. We call it the Elizabeth Morrison Financial Literacy Program, in memory of the woman who taught me everything about trust and partnership. James writes to me from prison. I don't write back, not yet. Maybe someday. Maybe when I can separate the son I raised from the man who chose to betray me. Christina doesn't write. I wouldn't read her letters anyway. The thing is, I don't regret exposing them, but I do regret not seeing it sooner, not recognizing that the herbal tea was making me foggy, that the memory concerns were manufactured, that my son had stopped seeing me as his father and started seeing me as an asset to exploit. Patricia Chen, the bank manager who warned me that day at the community center, she visits sometimes. We have coffee, talk about market trends and grandchildren, and the ways life surprises us. She saved me, in a way, by trusting her instincts and speaking up. You could have just flagged it internally, I told her once. Let the bank's fraud department handle it. And let them drag you through months of investigation while your name was destroyed, she said. You were my client for 12 years, David. I knew you'd want to fight. She was right. Fighting was all I had left. The house Elizabeth and I built, the one I'd left to move in with James and Christina, I sold it last month. Couldn't bear going back. Couldn't face the memories of what our family used to be. The new owners are a young couple with a baby, excited about the breakfast nook and the garden Elizabeth designed. I hope they're happy there. I'm teaching now, part-time at the university, a course on financial ethics and consumer protection. My students are mostly young, idealistic, shocked when I tell them about my daughter-in-law's scheme. But they listen, they learn. And maybe some of them will go into the world determined to do better, to be better. That's what Elizabeth would have wanted, I think. Not revenge, though I got that. Not bitterness, though I feel plenty of that. But education, prevention, making sure the next generation understands that trust is precious and betrayal has consequences. I still think about that moment in the community center when Patricia said those words, Your name is being used to scam seniors. The shock, the disbelief, the dawning horror. That moment divided my life into before and after. Before, I was a grieving widower trying to navigate retirement, trusting my family, believing the fog in my head was just age catching up. After, I became someone else. A fighter, an advocate, a man who'd lost his son but saved 37 strangers from losing everything. I don't know which version of myself I prefer, but I know which one Elizabeth would be proud of. And in the end, that's all that really matters. She always said I was at my best when I was protecting people, standing up for what was right, using my knowledge for good. So that's what I do now, every day. One victim at a time, one student at a time, one conversation at a time. It doesn't erase what Christina and James did, but it honors what Elizabeth and I built together, those 32 years of partnership and trust. And sometimes, late at night in my annex condo, I pour myself a whiskey and toast to Patricia Chen, the bank manager who saw something wrong and spoke up, to Dorothy Henderson and the other victims who became allies, to the RCMP investigators who took an old man's complaint seriously, to everyone who helped me prove that age doesn't mean vulnerability, that retirement doesn't mean irrelevance, that betrayal doesn't have to mean defeat. The tea Christina gave me, that herbal blend meant to keep me confused and compliant. I keep one of the bags as a reminder. Never again. Never will I doubt my own mind, my own instincts, my own worth. Never will I assume family means safety or love means loyalty. It's a harsh lesson to learn at 68, but it's one I won't forget. And neither, I hope, will the people I teach now, the seniors I warn, the children and grandchildren who hear this story and think twice about who they trust. Because in the end, that's all we have, trust, and the courage to fight back when it's broken.